Welcome to Story Talk, a series of online conversations featuring myself and storytellers from the Singapore Showcase. In this episode, I'll be chatting with poet and spoken word artist Stephanie Dogfoot. Hi Stephanie, welcome to Story Talk. So nice to have you with us for StoryFest 2022. Can you share a little bit with our listeners and viewers about the work that you do and who you are and how you work with story?
So I'm a poet and spoken word artist. I also produce events. I produce a poetry night, I produce a comedy night, and also a cabaret. And I've always been very inspired by stories. Admittedly, many of my own stories. And I feel like a big part of my work and as a performer, as a writer, is trying to tell people stories, whether it's through actual storytelling or poetry or other kinds of performance. I think just the power of like sharing something with people is it's great, and it's just like a really powerful form of expression, very powerful vehicle.
Tell us a little bit more, about the spoken word night and, the programs that you host, Spoken Bird, right?
Yes.
So how did that start, and, how are the stories told, and, what's the process like for programming and curating Spoken Bird?
So I've been producing and curating poetry, spoken word shows since around 2010. I started in London when I was part of the spoken word scene there, and when I came back to Singapore in 2014, I started hosting shows here. I do find it kind of addictive, and I just really enjoy bringing people together. And it's really great because the kinds of shows I run are often open mics. I also have featured curated artists who come in, and I think the open mics are amazing because you find that everyone from any walk of life can just come in and share something of theirs, and it's really beautiful just to see people without even much writing experience, people without much performing experience or none. Like I went to my first open mic with zero performing experience whatsoever, and it's just great to see them just feel like validated and just see them sharing bits of their lives, bits of their own minds, and just seeing it resonate with strangers.
So we're back live for the Singapore Showcase at the Playden at the Arts House, and it's been 3 years. 2019 was the last time that we were in the Playden sharing stories live with adult audiences for the Singapore Showcase. And you've been part of StoryFest previously. I'm sure you're looking forward to connecting with a real life, in-person, physical audience. So share with us a little bit about the story that you're going to be sharing for the Singapore Showcase this year.
This is a story that it's been on my mind for a while. It's sort of inspired by the Chinese mythological creature, the Hudising, and which is basically a fox spirit. People have made different definitions. It exists in many different cultures, also known as kitsune in Japan. And essentially, it's sort of a shape-shifting fox spirit, changes from a fox to a person, often a woman. And I thought it would be really interesting to explore that creature in Singapore. And I mean, I'm not the first person to explore this, but I also thought, what if her allegiances were not just with humans, but with animals as well? Because I'm a huge animal lover. And what if her allegiances were with maybe the kinds of animals that people tend to hate, like stray dogs? And what if we upped the stakes, and it was during a pandemic, a rabies pandemic,
right?
And
which we did go through, right?
Yes, exactly.
In the 1800s?
Yes, exactly. So it's based on actual historical events. And what if I located it during, the rabies pandemic in Singapore, and what would happen?
So Stephanie, I've heard you tell before, I've heard you recite your poems and, attended your spoken word programs. What drives you to keep telling stories and to create stories and to share stories with people?
So I just really love connecting with people, and I really love having a captive audience to hear my stories. But it's also just great being able to just connect and find things in common with strangers, especially if strangers come up to me afterwards and say that I really enjoyed that, or that really made me think of something. It's just great to find community and create communities around just like the sharing of stories.
So, you've done this for more than 12, 13 years, right? As a producer, programmer, and as a spoken word artist and storyteller. So looking back to when you first started, you mentioned that first gig, the open mic gig back in UK when you were a student. What do you wish you had then to support you in this moment of embarking on becoming a spoken word artist, on becoming a storyteller? So looking back, what are some things that would have been nice to have?
I think it would have been nice to, just have known a few more people. I did make some good friends at my very first, I'm still friends with some of the people I met in my very first poetry slam in the UK. But it would have been nice just to, get to know more people, have people maybe at my stage, at my level, who are also maybe starting out, who are going through the similar things, and just for us to sort of help each other.
So what can we have in Singapore to help this community of, writers, storytellers, spoken word performers thrive? What more do we need?
So I think in Singapore there are already quite a few poetry groups. I'm part of a poetry group called Sabre. There's all kinds of different communities and writing communities, but I feel like it always is dependent on someone taking the first step. So I feel like it's really about people daring to reach out, daring to make the first move and ask for support, ask for advice. But also it's, I think, up to writers to sort of open our hearts and open our groups and our arms to new writers as well.
Absolutely, right? It's platforms to nurture the emerging, but at the same time to showcase and celebrate those who have been doing this for quite some time, and who are established practitioners. It shouldn't be either or. It should always be both, I feel. Knowing who you are and knowing where you are situated and understanding more about your culture, your community, your society, and all about identity. How do you feel, in the work that you do, and being both the artist as well as the producer of arts events, the role of story and identity?
I think a lot of identity essentially is sort of based on the stories we tell ourselves, the narratives that are the strongest in our minds and how we understand ourselves. And I think stories are sort of a way of enforcing our identities. And at the same time, I feel like stories are a way that can help us to empathize with people from other identities. They are important for strengthening maybe people's sort of shared identities, but I think even more than that, it's a way of people being able to reach out to identities, people of groups or identities may not understand or may not necessarily feel they have any affinity or solidarity with.
So it's almost like a bridge, right? So it's an opportunity to create that stable platform so that people on either side can walk or be supported by this bridge and meet.
Yes.
So now this brings me to my last question, and something that I always think about. What do you hope for the future of storytelling and the practice and craft in Singapore?
I would like it to, I think, reach a lot more people. I think especially for people to realize it's not just something for children.
Definitely.
And it's definitely something that adults can enjoy. I think it's something that a lot of the myths and sort of fables, they definitely have a lot of resonance. And it's really, I think, in a way, it's great to teach children these things and great to pass it down. But I think in a way it also takes sort of adults to really be able to understand them, subvert them, adapt them, get inspired by them, and write their own as well.
So other than working with folklore and mythology and legends that you adapt, and usually you set them in a contemporary setting when you retell them, you also tell personal stories.
Yes, so I used to run a true life storytelling event, which is sort of how I got connected with StoryFest. It was called the Singapore Story Slam, and it doesn't run anymore, but that was also an amazing kind of open mic scenario where we got people to come in and tell their stories from their lives, and I really resonated with that. And as a poet, especially because a lot of my poetry is based on stories of my life, as mentioned. And so my first book is called Roadkill for Beginners, published by Math Paper Press. And that book essentially is lots of different stories of memories I've had of different strange things that have happened to me.
So if people want to read that book, how can they get the book or find the book?
They can order it online. It's on, might be on Matthew Upper Press' website. You can also order it from me directly. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, or email me, and I have a bunch of copies I can sell as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for being part of the Singapore Showcase. Looking forward to listening to your story. And thank you for being here with me and talking with me on Story Talk.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this conversation between myself and Stephanie Dogfoot, don't forget to listen to her story on Story Threads. And don't forget to watch all the other interviews featuring the other storytellers from the Singapore Showcase on Story Talk.